Ella Flagg Young, educator, activist, and progressive voice for organized teachers throughout a distinguished career in education, was born in Buffalo, New York in 1845. At the age of 17, Young began teaching school in Chicago, the start of a professional career in education that would span the next 5 decades. During that time, she would serve parents, students, and the city of Chicago as teacher, innovator of teacher education programs, deputy superintendent of schools, and as the first woman to head a large metropolitan school system as its superintendent from 1909 to 1915. Moreover, at a time when the Chicago business community fought labor at every turn, Young was a champion for unionization of teachers and the institution of democratic principles in the public schools. Throughout her professional career, Young participated in and led the Chicago schools through periods of dramatic change in which industrialization dominated the economy and diverse new populations of students arrived in the schools. As superintendent, she responded to these and other challenges by instituting a range of educational reforms designed to make Chicago schools institutions of liberal education rather than worker factories designed to fill the needs of business. In 1910, Young was the first woman to be elected president of the Illinois State Teachers Association, the forerunner to the Illinois Education Association. She was elected the first woman president of the NEA 1 year later and used the bully pulpit of the NEA convention to promote her views favoring the unionization of teachers and democratization of the workplace. To be sure, Young brought democratic and progressive ideals to Chicago classrooms and to education theory. She believed in empowering teachers in their classrooms and through their union. She came to that conclusion through her own experience. She observed that teachers without the benefit of a strong union were not empowered to influence the Board of Education on matters of educational policy or their own compensation and working conditions. As a proponent for higher wages for teachers and more professional working conditions, she had witnessed representatives of the teachers politely addressing their concerns before the school administration and board, only to be patronizingly dismissed at the end of their presentations. She aligned herself closely with the growing power of the Chicago Federation of Teachers under the leadership of Margaret Haley and Catherine Goggin. She acknowledged that the professionalization of teachers was directly aligned with their ability to assert their authority and power in the schools. Young's support of teachers and teacher organizations was not well taken by the conservative members of the Chicago Board of Education, who launched successive attempts to destroy her reputation and force her out of the superintendency. The encouragement and support of parents, teachers, and progressive politicians persuaded her not to submit her resignation. But by August of 1915, while she was away on vacation, real estate magnate Jacob Loeb, an influential member of the board, presented a motion forbidding teachers from belonging to unions. When Young returned, this clause, known as the Loeb Rule, had already been approved. Frustrated by the Loeb Rule and the board's growing negative influence in school matters, Young retired. The Loeb Rule was eventually overturned by the courts, but in the year following its enactment, the Board of Education met no opposition to their dismissal of 68 teachers who had refused to resign their membership in the Chicago Federation of Teachers. During the last years of her life, Young remained active in education and politics. Addressing the delegates to the NEA convention in 1916, she reiterated her support for teachers' unions and again sought to discredit any effort that would prevent teachers from asserting their rightful authority. Young died at the age of 73 in the influenza epidemic of 1918. The flags in Chicago were flown at half-staff. In a tribute published in the Chicago Tribune, Jane Addams wrote of her friend, "She had more general intelligence and character than any other woman I knew." Ella Flagg Young, a champion, a progressive for education and all those who teach and work in our schools.